In the later classes, we will hear about other aspects also, like this whole tract of land is called as Parashurama Kshetra. So it's a land that is in connection with Lord Parashuram. And apart from that, we will also hear about the pastimes of Madhvacharya in the later classes. So today we will focus primarily on the three temples that we are going to visit now. So before that, like the importance of coming to the Dham. So importance of coming to the Dham. In Bangalore also we are residing. We are chanting the names of the Lord. We are doing our devotional service. So, but what is so important and what is so special about coming to the Dham? So why we should come to the Dham? What is so special about coming to the Dham? So if you chant in Bangalore also, it will be same effect only, no? Huh?
It will increase the effect.
Huh?
It will increase the effect.
It will increase the effect, okay? What other speciality? Why coming to the Dham is important? Some energy comes here. Okay. Okay, so pure devotees, they lived here, and so their remnants are also there here. Okay. Any other? So one thing that you can see is everywhere it is full of temples, and everything that is there is connected to temples. Unfortunately, many shops are also there, so which is not supposed to be there actually. So, the whole environment is fully connected to the Lord and the service. Here, which are there, so they are also like, you see the outside sound is also like chanting of mantras and all these things are happening. So Dham is a place which is designed, for the worship of the Lord. So city is a place which is designed for our sense gratification. So like malls are there, and everything is designed for our sense gratification. So here, if you see, like the temple is big, and all the other things are small. And in city, like, all the houses are big and temple is small. So the importance itself, where the importance goes, so that itself is very nice. So Dhams are, like a replica of the spiritual world, where the importance for Krishna consciousness, importance of temple worship, that is the central point. And also visiting the Dham, or staying in the Dham and staying in any, it is not the same. So staying in the Dham itself is an act of devotion. So like residing in a holy place, it is that itself is an act of devotion. So in Bangalore, if you stay and if you chant, then it can be considered as devotion. But in holy places, if you stay itself is considered to be devotion. So like, so residing in a holy place itself is considered to be a devotion, act of devotion. So that way it is very important that like time and again we should come to these holy places, and we should recharge ourselves. So if residing in Dham itself is an act of devotion, then why not we reside here only? Why should we go back to Bangalore?
Practically it is not possible.
Huh?
Practically it is not possible.
Practically it is not. Okay, imagine like if somebody says, okay fine, I will give you every month's salary to stay in the Dham. I will take care of your housing, lodging and everything. So then no problem, then we can stay in the Dham. Huh? Preaching, okay, fine. So that is, you can go preach and come back to Dham like that. So what is the problem in staying in Dham then? Offenses. So until unless our mind and our system is completely purified of committing offenses, so we cannot stay in the Dham. So that is why it is mentioned, Dham visit, 2 days, 3 days, maximum 1 week, you visit and you go back. So that till the time you can actually prepare your consciousness that I should not commit any offense. I am staying in the Lord's place. All these things we can program ourselves. After that our natural thing will come. We will start committing offenses and things like that. See, offenses means So it is just like, if you have, like if you are there in a particular place, you have to behave in a certain way, actually, that place. So everything that, which is there in that place, it is all in connection to the Supreme Lord, not here. So everything that is there is in connection with the Supreme Lord. It is not just, we misbehave with the Lord that is considered to be offense. So we don't behave properly with anything that is in connection with the Lord. No, it is actually an offense to the Lord. So we don't know the culture of the spiritual world, and we are getting trained into the culture of spiritual world. So until and unless that culture becomes our natural thing, the spiritual culture becomes a natural thing. So it is it is not very safe for us to be there in a highly spiritual place. So we should get trained, and our ultimate goal is to go back to Vrindavan, go back to the spiritual abode, and that is like, if you go back to Bharat, you are going to live in Dham only, completely. Even, many times it is also seen that in this life itself, when we prepare ourselves nicely, and when we train ourselves nicely, and then, towards the end of the life, one may stay in the Dham and then one may go back. So those who don't have so much of interest for preaching, then they should, actually, prepare oneself, purify oneself and stay in the Dham. So those who are preaching the message of Krishna consciousness, wherever they are, they can, get the benefit of, staying in the Dham as well. So it is, these are all the reasons, why the Dham is very important. The very stay itself is considered to be like an act of devotion. So we make, tremendous progress in Krishna consciousness. Okay? So and also the way to perform Krishna consciousness is that, 24/7 being engaged in service of the Lord. So that is very difficult back in Bangalore, with all our engagements, occupations and things like that. But when we come to yatras like this, we don't have any other occupation. We don't have anything else to do. So we can, practice this thing, like constantly chanting or hearing or taking darshan of the Lord, having prasadam, so doing some spiritual activities. So I heard today evening, you all have some free time. So, so don't think that it is chutti, So it is a time awarded to you to see spontaneously what you will do. So spontaneously you will do devotion, or spontaneously you will do something else. So please engage that also in devotional activities. So because it is coming to the Dham itself is very rare. So in that any material activity, any act of sense gratification, which is performed in the Dham is not very beneficial. So, it will be counterproductive. So, utilize this time which you are there in the Dham, so maximum for Krishna consciousness alone. Right? So now, this Dham, we see that this is also called as Parashurama Kshetra. As I mentioned, today evening we are going to discuss about Lord Parashuram, and tomorrow we will be discussing about Madhvacharya. So this place was brought to its shape, by the Madhvacharya. And he also established 8 different matas, and he gave the responsibility of worship of this main temple, Krishna temple. Each mata gets 2 years of term, which they call as Paryaya, and they manage the temple. And then rest 14 years, because 8 matas, so all put 2 years means 16 years. So if one mata is managing the temple, then they get the opportunity to manage the temple after 14 years. So then other matas will take care. So they will preach for 14 years, and 2 years exclusively they focus on temple worship. So like that, they had this system. And so here, which is the oldest temple here? Ananteshwar temple. Then, which is the next oldest temple? Chandramoleshwar temple. Okay. So we see that this 2 important temples are there. So Ananteshwar temple and Chandramoleshwar temple. So the first thing, generally dhams that we go, in Krishna temples, wherever Vishnu temples are there. So there is also temple of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva is considered to be the Kshetrapala. He is the maintainer and protector of the dham. And So anywhere Lord Shiva and Mother Durga is there, automatically Lord Vishnu also appears there. So these are all very, very divinely connected personalities. So there is this Lord Shiva, as the protector of the Dham. We see in any other place, you remember, Lord Vishnu's place, Lord Shiva temple is there. Okay,
Jagannath.
Guruvayur is there.
Jagannath.
Jagannath Puri also it is there. Vrindavan to like har dham mein like there is this one Mahadev's temple is there. So it is very, very nice that like Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu has such intimate connection. So I am coming from Tamil Nadu. So in Tamil Nadu, like we have Lord Shiva followers and Lord Vishnu followers. They constantly have fight actually. So because of the philosophical wisdom, which also has some significance to this place. So we will discuss it when we discuss about Madhvacharya. So the followers may have that kind of differences and fightings and things like that. But then these divine personalities themselves, they are very, very, in fact, they are attached to each other. So there is the nature of Lord Shiva is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Vaishnavana Meta Shambhu. The best of all Vaishnavas is Lord Shiva. So in fact, in the pastime of Prachatas, so like these are all great king's sons. So when they were going for self-realization, Lord Shiva personally appeared and he taught them something called Rudra Gita. Rudra Gita means people may think that it is worship of Lord Shiva. So but it is songs or prayers meant to please the Supreme Lord Vishnu. In fact, after reciting the Rudra Gita, Lord Vishnu appeared and blessed Prachatas actually. In fact, Lord Shiva is seen that in the Samudra Manthan pastime, there are many things that happens, many wonderful things that comes out of the churning of the milk ocean. But before all these things, the first thing that comes is, what is the first thing that comes out of Samudra Manthan? Poison. So poison, when it comes, like immediately, they actually, in fact, Vishnu had mentioned that many wonderful things will come. So he told that devatas and the demons, you can pick up those things. But then there will be poison, so that you people cannot handle. So for that we should approach Lord Shiva. So then Lord Shiva actually absorbs the poison. In fact, when the poison comes out, all the devatas and the demons, everybody approach Lord Shiva. At the time, Lord Shiva consults Mother Parvati that what should we do? So all our children are in danger. So how should we handle this? So then Mother Parvati told that, you are very, very capable and you are a very powerful person. Definitely you can, accept this, accept this poison. So in fact, there Shukadeva Goswami mentions one nice glorification of Lord Shiva. He tells that Tapyante lokatapena sadhava kaya sojana paramaradhanam tadvi purusha shakilatma. So this Tapyante lokatapena. So tapa means what? Heat. Lokatapa means the heat that is experienced by the people in general, not the summer heat. It's like the heat of material existence or misery of material existence. And so tapyante lokatapena means not being able to tolerate the sufferings of the people. So Lord Shiva accepts the suffering upon himself, or the poison which is tormenting the world. So Lord Shiva accepts the poison upon himself. And sadhava praya sujana. So this is the mood of a sadhu. So generally the sadhus, so they pick up sufferings, just to relieve the suffering of people in general. Sadhava praya sujana. And then this is considered to be paramaradhanam paddi. So that means this is the highest form of worship of the Supreme Lord. So how can you say this to be a worship of the Supreme Lord? So worshipping the Supreme Lord means what? How do you worship the Supreme Lord?
Offering flowers.
Offering flowers. Huh? chanting the name of, huh? Yeah, telling shlokas in glorification of the Lord. So, but how taking the pain of others, and so like that becomes worship of the Lord.
They are also other parts of
Yes, the living entities are also part and parcel of Krishna, and they are not being Krishna conscious, and that is the suffering of the living entities. And seeing that, the devotees, like, actually those who are devotees, they must feel the pain of others, and they should try to relieve that pain by preaching the message of Krishna consciousness, right? So this is something that in the Lord Shiva's pastime of Samudra Manthanka, his involvement is like this. He is not interested in all the good things that are coming out of the ocean. So like there is nectar that came, there is like Airavata and the Uchchashrava and many different things that actually come out. And Lord Shiva was least bothered about all these things. So, but when it comes to the danger of people, he is there with them. So this is a very nice aspect of Lord Shiva. He accepts. In fact, like when the nectar came, nobody invited Lord Shiva. They just themselves they had fight and things like that. So, but when the poison came, so they approached Lord Shiva. So, in fact, here this temple, this Chandramauleshwar temple, which is Lord Shiva's temple, and in fact, in the Dan Darshan, Krama, it is mentioned that first we should, visit the Chandramauleshwar temple and take the blessings of Lord Shiva, and because he is almost all the places, he is the reason for the Lord's appearance. So, in fact, in Chaitanya Leela also we see that Advaitacharya is the one who petitions the Lord to appear, and he is also an incarnation of Sadashiva. So in that way, petitioning and requesting Lord Shiva to grant, us the opportunity to take darshan of Lord Krishna. So that's a very nice thing. So first, we should take darshan of Chandramauleshwar temple, and here the pastime mentioned this of this moon god Chandra, he got cursed by Daksha, because he had Daksha's many daughters. He married. All of them are different nakshatras, and then but he is very much attached to one nakshatra, which is that Rohini. So then, because of that, he was cursed, and cursed to become diminished in his potency, and then eventually becomes completely vanished and things like that. So then Chandra actually performed tapasya to please Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva appeared, and then he agreed to keep him in his head. So that is how the Lord Shiva gets this name Chandramauli. Chandramauli means one who carries the Chandra on his head. So so this place of worship of this Chandra is the place where actually the Ananteshwar temple is present at this point in time. So, but this is the place of worship of Lord Chandra, and then Lord Shiva appears on the request of Chandradev, and then he is present in this temple of Chandramauleshwar. And it is like a very special place. We should go and take blessings and things like that. And also it is mentioned Mother Durga, you will not find a deity of Durga over here, but then Mother Durga is present in this place in the mood of Vatsalya. So generally Mother Durga is, what is she in relation with Krishna? Sister. So Mother Durga is like Shubhadra. So she's sister. So but here she is in the mood of motherly affection towards Krishna, and Krishna also plays the part of a small child here. And then we have this Ananteshwar temple. So the Ananteshwar temple is, there also you will find a Shivalinga kind of deity over there, but then it is not Shivalinga. What is the deity which is worshipped in Ananteshwar temple? So it is Parashuram's deity, that is worshipped over there. In fact, there is a devotee, by name Ram Boja. He is a devotee of Parashuram, and he was awarded this land, and he was tilling this land. So when he was tilling this land, so that time, he happened to kill some snakes. So then, as a parihara, so he was advised to make a rupya pita. Rupya pita means in Sanskrit it is called silver pedestal. So in the silver pedestal, install 4 snakes in 4 corners, and then feed them with a milk and things like that. So he performed all those things, and he also pleased Lord Parashuram. And Parashuram appeared here, and he agreed to stay in that pita. So there is another history which talks about Lord Shiva teaching Parashuram the Dhanur Veda or Dhanur Vidya, and as a Guru Dakshana, so Lord Shiva requested Parashuram to appear in the form of a linga. So that got fulfilled here, and Parashuram actually appears in the form of a linga here. So this Ananteshwara temple appears to be a Shiva temple, but then it is temple of Lord Parashuram. And it's also another very important place. It has a very strong connection with Madhvacharya. So though we will speak about Madhvacharya later, this we will discuss here because we are going to go to this temple now. The temple, here the geography is like this. Right opposite to where we are, just opposite to this building, is the place of Krishna temple. And so you go like this, and then take a little bit of right. So then that is where Ananteshwar temple is there, and then go a little straight. Then after Ananteshwar, what you are seeing in front now, immediately in front of you, the road, and then on the right hand side, that is Ananteshwar temple actually. After Ananteshwar temple is the Chandramauleshwar temple, and so straight on the road against this building, what we are seeing is the Krishna temple. So now, first we will go to Chandramauleshwar temple, then Ananteshwar temple, and from there this window of Kanakadas, so that is just that is there just opposite to our place. So after taking darshan of Ananteshwar temple, we will come to this window of Kanakadas, then from there we will again get into the Krishna temple. So that's how we will go inside. So now, in the Ananteshwar temple, when you are taking darshan of the Lord, after that you will do a parikrama. So when you start the parikrama, the first place in the parikrama mark that comes is the place where Madhvacharya used to sit and give his discourses. That's that place we will actually see. And the speciality of that place is, so once when he was giving a discourse on one of the Upanishads, Aittreya Upanishad, so so suddenly there is a shower of flowers that actually fall upon him, and then he vanishes from that place. So that's the last darshan of Madhvacharya. So Madhvacharya did not quit body like any other personality. He just vanished from the place. And it is also written over there that in Sanskrit it is written there that he became disappeared, Adprishya, Rupya Pita. So he became vanished from this place of Rupya Pita, and he appeared in Badrikashram. So he continued his service to his spiritual master. Now who is spiritual master of Madhvacharya? So in Bhagavad Gita we have, after introduction, Guru Parampara list, So Vyasadeva is the spiritual master of Madhvacharya. In fact, during his manifest pastimes, he went to Badrikashram, he wrote the commentary on Vedanta Sutra, and he personally got it verified from Vyasadeva, and then he came back and preached that particular Krishna. So in that way, Vyasadeva is his spiritual master, and he disappeared from this place and he appeared in Badrikashram. So that place where Madhvacharya disappeared, so that place is there in the parikrama of the Ananteshwar temple, the first spot in the parikrama of Ananteshwar temple. In fact, later on, the other acharyas, they wanted to install a deity of Madhvacharya there. So wherever a great personality lived, so they generally we keep the deity of that personality. So when the deity of Madhvacharya was kept there, so then Madhvacharya came in the dream of that acharya and he told, why have you kept a stone on top of me? No, I'm still living there. So you get a very nice opportunity to take darshan of Madhvacharya in his live presence. So generally we have the idea that darshan means like something I should be able to see. So here you will not be able to see Madhvacharya over here. So but then still the personality is present there. And how do you connect with spiritual personalities? Now how do you connect with spiritual personalities? By the way of hearing, by the way of hearing, by the way of following their instructions. And if we are following the instructions which is coming down into Guru Parampara, that is chanting the names of the Lord and doing various devotional services. So that is how we connect with the spiritual personalities. So another important way to connect with spiritual personalities is prayer. So when you are there in front of the Madhvacharya's disappearance place, you can pray to Madhvacharya that we become attached to Krishna, we become attached to the service of Krishna. So in that way, like we can actually take darshan of that particular place. And also for Madhvacharya, this is the place where he got introduced to Krishna consciousness, we can say. So Madhvacharya is an eternal associate of the Lord, but still in the manifest pastimes. So he used to be, as a small boy, he used to come to this temple here. And when he used to come to this temple, there is one sannyasi he used to be there, Achyuta Preksha. He used to nicely give prasadam to Madhvacharya and he used to talk to him and things like that. Externally, he used to look like a Mayavadi sannyasi, because at that time the Mayavadi philosophy was very rampantly spread everywhere. So externally, he used to appear like a Mayavadi sannyasi, but he was a Vaishnava, and he used to give him prasadam, and he used to talk to him and things like that. And so that's how Madhvacharya got in touch with the devotees in the manifest pastimes. And later on, Achyuta Preksha actually teaches him many scriptures and things like that. So he is also considered to be Guru of Madhvacharya, and later on he awards sannyas to Madhvacharya, this Achyuta Preksha. So that also happens in the Ananteshwar temple. So Ananteshwar temple is very, very dear to Madhvacharya. So that's the place where he got in touch with his Guru Achyuta Preksha. And also that's the place where he used to regularly discourse and be with his disciples, teach his disciples and things like that. So it's a place of, very, very intimate place of Madhvacharya. And we see that this Krishna Varna, so they actually appear in, they actually, both of them actually appear in udupi in the form of deity. So Krishna and Balarama, how many years they stayed in Vrindavan? 11. So around 10-11 years they stayed in Vrindavan. So then after that they moved to Mathura, and from there they moved to Dwaraka. Now, so Krishna lived, how much time he lived in Mathura, Dwaraka? Mathura and Dwaraka put together? Maybe 100 plus years he lived. So who is very fortunate? Vrindavan Vasis are very fortunate. Why Vrindavan Vasis are fortunate? Look, Krishna lived only for 10 years. And in Mathura and Dwaraka he lived for 100 years. Huh? Oh, they didn't get the chance to play with Krishna, okay? Huh? Childhood pastimes happened in Vrindavan, that's okay.
Krishna remembered.
Huh? Okay. Krishna remembers? What?
Vrindavan.
Krishna remembers Vrindavan. Krishna himself likes Vrindavan very much. Okay. So why is Vrindavan very important? Though Krishna stayed only for some time. So it is very important to see even Vasudev, like in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is in discussion with Narada. He is mentioning that I am so unfortunate that I did not get to serve Krishna. Because when the child is very small, the children actually take service from the parents. And when the child is grown up, what is expected? Children serving, what is that? It is ideal that the children serve the parents, but then they grow up, so the intimate services actually it is not available over there. So when the child is small, the child is completely dependent upon the parents. Without the parents, they cannot be. So when the child grows up, then the child serves the parents. So now Vasudeva was all the time, Krishna is offering obeisance to Vasudeva, and all the time he is what is that? Taking so much of reverence and distance and all these things are there. But in the childhood pastimes, you see that very, very intimate pastimes actually happens, and then very intimate service to Krishna actually happens. So this is something that Vasudeva actually loses. He only wanted, son like, the Supreme Lord, son like Krishna, or he wanted Krishna to appear as his son, so he is fulfilled. But then the Vrajavasis, especially the Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, so they had prayed to serve Krishna in a very, very intimate way. So which Vasudeva did not get that kind of an opportunity. So he was lamenting and he was telling to Narada that I did not pray properly, so I should have got, the Vrindavan Vasis are more fortunate actually. So because there is no reverence in the relationship and things like that. And also in Vrindavan, Krishna is exclusively, his only identity is that he is son of Mother Yashoda, or he is lover of the gopis, or he is just a gaawala, that's all. But when he comes to Mathura and Dwaraka, so what is he doing? He is doing of Loka Kalyana, and he is doing of taking care of killing of the demons and establishing the proper rule and many other aspects that he is dealing with. So but in Vrindavan, everything is dealt around devotees only. So in Vrindavan, Krishna doesn't even wear slippers. So in Vrindavan, Krishna is very, very intimate in all his relationships. He doesn't deal with anybody, who is anything less than pure devotional service. So but in this one, in Mathura and Dwaraka, he had to deal with many other subjects. Of course, there also he dealt with pure devotees. So but then, his attention is diverted amongst many other things. His mission of fulfilling the demigods, this one of killing the asuras and maintaining the place and things like that and all. So in Vrindavan, the killing of asuras is only to protect his devotees. It is not that killing of asuras is not the primary business. So but later on, it became so attention is diverted and multifold. So Vrindavan, though Krishna stayed for only 10 years, it is a very, very special place. So now all the queens of Dwaraka and Mother Devaki also, so all of them, they did not get the opportunity to see Krishna's childhood pastimes. So Rohini used to describe about the Krishna's childhood pastimes. So then they developed kind of a desire to see Krishna's childhood pastimes. So Krishna also fulfilled that. Krishna played the childhood pastimes, he manifested childhood pastimes to them. So but still they were not satisfied. So then there were deities were made, through Vishwakarma, deities were made of Krishna and Balaram, and two sets of deities. One set of deity to Devaki and another set of deity for Rukmini. And in fact it is mentioned that all queens of Krishna also had Krishna's deities. So because Krishna would go off for fighting the battle of Hariksetra for almost 6 months or 8 months, he didn't come back. It is often seen that Krishna would go out of Dwaraka as well, often. So that so they also used to have deities of Krishna, and these deities after Krishna's disappearance, so the entire Dwarka was engulfed, by the ocean. So and so generally when travelers, when they come from one place to another, so they would have a lot of goods, that are kept, and also they would have some load balancing elements, some stones or some things like that. So they would have those things also. So when a traveler, when he was coming from Dwaraka, he had some of these, stones, which are taken from that place, Dwaraka. And so when he was coming near this famous place here, most of you, I think many of you asked also, seems like why that is not there in the itinerary. So Malpe Beach, So near that beach, when this ship was coming, it got stuck. The ship was stuck due to some whirlwind or something kind of some kind of a thing. It was stuck. And Madhvacharya, on that day, he was there on the beach, and then he was getting some divine inspiration, and he was composing many wonderful songs in glorification of the Lord. And he was thinking that some miracle is going to happen today. And that time, the people from the ship, they were calling out for help and things like that. So in Madhvacharya, he's an incarnation of Vayudev. Very easily, he released the ship from the danger. And then the traveler told that, no, today you saved our life and you saved us completely. So then, we offer you everything that is there in the ship. There is so many costly goods are there, everything you can have. And Madhvacharya told, no, I'm a sannyasi, what is the need of any of these things to me? So then they told, there is some Gopi Chandan. So Gopi Chandan is the mud in the place of Dwaraka is the Gopi Chandan that we are getting actually. So there is Gopi Talab is also there. So that Gopi Chandan is there. So that is of interest for the Vaishnavas. So they can use it for tilak, and it's a holy dust, which we worship a lot. And then Madhvacharya told, okay fine, if Gopi Chandan is there, we can take it. So big lump of Gopi Chandan. So which 35 disciples of Madhvacharya, they tried to lift it, so they could not lift. So then Madhvacharya, he single-handedly lifted it. And when he was coming, one portion of it broke up, and then from there came up the Balram deity. So then Balram instructed Madhvacharya, that he be installed in the beach itself. So that's why the temple of Balaram is there in the beach, near to the beach. So today evening you have free time, so probably if you want you can go there. So it is called as Balabandeshwar Balaram temple. And then, so rest of the block was brought here, and then it was put into the Madhva Sarovar. So Madhva Sarovar is the big lake that you will be seeing. So after, from here if you see straight Krishna temple is there, immediately after Krishna temple is the Madhva Sarovar. So there it was put, and all the Gopi Chandan got melted, and then Krishna deity came up. So then Krishna deity was installed here, and then this mata, Madhvacharya established very solid worship, over here. So this is the history of how Krishna appeared, here in this place. Also we have, right in front of us, we have this window called Kanakana Kindi. So Kindi means the window. So in fact the main darshan inside the altar also, you will find that they call it as Navagraha Kindi, or this 9 holes which are there in that window. So it is only window darshan we are going to have. So we are not going to have the door darshan. So because the door is on the eastern side, right? So but then the Lord has turned towards the the door is towards the northern side, and then the Lord has turned towards the western side. So now when we are seeing here, this is east actually, and the Lord is actually facing this side, facing towards the west. So now here itself, you have that shrine of Kanakadas. So in the Karnataka, in this region, so we find that there are 2 kinds of paramparas that are there. So one is the Vyasa parampara. So that is coming down in the disciplic succession of Vyasadeva. So in all of the 4 paramparas that we have, what are the 4 paramparas that we have? Madhva parampara, Sri Parampara, Rudra Parampara and Kumara Parampara. So in all of it, Vyasadeva is a very, very important personality. No? So Vyasadeva is the authority of Vedas, so irrespective of any of these paramparas. So this is a parampara that is coming down in the Vyasadeva's line. There is also this Dasana parampara. So this like Purandara Das and Kanaka Das and all. So like they are also like very authorized personalities, like who are their devotion is verified by the scriptural conclusions as well. So like here we see that he was a shepherd. Kanaka Das was a shepherd, and generally like in the matas, they don't allow the Shudras or anybody less than that. So they don't allow them into the temples. So that's the standard. In fact, Shudras would be allowed. So but anybody less than that, so that they would not actually allow. So shepherd, he was a shepherd, and then he was having a natural, spontaneous attraction towards Krishna, and he would compose a lot of songs and things like that as well. And he would come and take darshan of the Lord, through this window. And through this window, like you will not be able to see the Lord as such, but then there was a wall over there. So like through the window, he could only see the Garbhagriha's wall. So where like eastern side or western side wall. So the Lord is seen from the northern side. So generally, like temples, like the traditional temples, there are two kinds of places are there. One is temples and another is mutts. So matta is basically a place where the renunciants reside and they would perform the devotion to the Lord. And it is according to their discretion. Sometimes they may allow public also to come and take darshan. So but temples are designed for public to come and take darshan. So this is like kind of a matta. So where the primary thing is the residents of the matta and their worship of the Lord and things like that. So nothing is optimized for public here. So like later on it became very famous. So it is they have done some provision for public. Otherwise it is like primarily the matta. Like the residents of the matta, they worship the Lord and things like that. So that's very important over here. So now this Kanaka Das, when he used to come and take darshan, so he would express his this one, like his devotion to the Lord in the form of poetry. And it is not that they were feeling very bad that we are not allowed inside the temple and we will do dharna and things like that and all. So it is not like that. So they were completely satisfied, just by offering nice prayers to the Lord and seeing the hand of the Lord in their life. So they were completely satisfied. So but one day, when he was offering such wonderful heart-melting prayers, the Lord turned himself, like towards this side and broke open the wall and then gave darshan to Kanaka Das. So that is also a very special place. So that is why we also come and take darshan from this window. So when we are getting better darshan, close-up darshan inside, so why are we coming and taking darshan in this window? So just to emulate the mood of Kanaka Das, that like I am also not qualified to approach the Lord, to take darshan of the Lord. So maybe the Lord is very eager to see Kanaka Das, who is there through this window. So maybe if I come in that line, maybe Lord will bless me and things like that. So in that way, it's an act of humility. It's this one that may Lord, His vision may fall upon me, so that I may become purified. Yeah, this is also an important thing. That darshan means not that we are seeing the Lord. What is darshan? What is very important in darshan? Lord should see us. We seeing the Lord is not much of use actually. The Lord should actually see us. So that is very important. And Lord sees only devotees. So the Lord doesn't see, even if you present yourself in front of Him, but you don't have the devotional attitude, so then Lord will find it to be a noise, like visual noise. So like, why this guy has come in front of me, and things like that. So but if we are nicely engaged in devotional service, we want to serve and please the Lord. So then the Lord will be interested in seeing us. So in fact, during Ram Navami, like we discussed this pastime of Shurpanaka. So Shurpanaka going to meet Lord Rama. So when Shurpanaka wanted to, associate with Lord Rama, she wanted to become the wife of Lord Rama and things like that and all. So but Lord is not interested. So in fact, Lord cut the nose and ears and sent her off and things like that. So, but the same thing, when the sages of Dandakaranya, so they also wanted to become the wives of, want to serve the Lord, as wives. So then, they were given the opportunity to appear in Krishna Leela, and they were, given appropriate facilities to serve the Lord as wives or concerts and things like that. So, but the same thing Shurpanaka also wanted, but then she wanted to enjoy the Lord. And so those who want to enjoy the Lord, so the Lord is not very much interested. Those who want to serve the Lord is very much, attached to them, and He also wishes to serve, such devotees. So that's why it is very important that there may be crowd, there may be so much of difficulty in going to the darshan, but we should always see that I am not qualified to take darshan of the Lord. I am not qualified to render devotional service. It's Lord's mercy that He is allowing me to do this, get this opportunity. So I am very, very grateful to the Lord. So, and please my Lord, you bestow your darshan upon me. So in that way, so we pray to the Lord and then approach the Lord in this holy place, right? So we should not dakka mukhi karke go in the front and things like that and all. So maybe you will reach in front of the Lord quickly, but then you may not please the Lord, and the Lord may not be very eager to give you darshan. So the most important thing is maintain the mood of servant of the Lord, maintain the mood of service to the Lord, and pray very eagerly that I want to have darshan, and please bestow this mercy upon me. And the Lord will bestow His choicest blessings. So now, which is the first place that we will be going? Chandramaleshwar temple. So from there, we take darshan of Lord Shiva, do parikrama, come out. Then next where we will go? Ananteshwar temple. So after taking darshan of Ananteshwar, then parikrama, Madhvacharya's disappearance place. So after doing parikrama, coming out, so then we'll go to Kanakadas shrine, which is just there, here in front of us. So Kanakadas, we take darshan of Kanakadas, and then we take darshan of Lord from the window, and then we enter into the temple. We go and join the line, we enter into the temple. Suddenly we may get an idea that by the time we take all this darshan, the line will grow in Krishna temple. First we will finish Krishna temple and then we can go to these places. So, don't put such ideas. Go in sequence only. First you go to Chandramaleshwar, Ananteshwar, then take darshan of Madhvacharya's disappearance place. Then after that Kanakadas, then take darshan through the window of Kanakadas, Krishna, and then enter into Krishna temple and have darshan of Krishna. Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So now we are going to the darshan as prabhuji insisted. We have to follow